Hey, what's up, guys? It's Mark. I'm back to talk about fantasy football again. So, this video, I'm going to talk about the the week 3 waiver wire pickups, the guys that you're going to want to be targeting after their week 2 performance. So, I'm going to first do a rehash of what happened in the Monday night game last night and my takeaways from that. Then, I'm going to go into tricks or treats, the guys that I like that are good waiver wire pickups, and guys that I don't like in terms of how to build your team. And then I'm also going to go through some stream options that I like for this week in case you're in a pinch and you need to fill some of these positions. Like, let's say you had like the unfortunates of having David Njoku or OJ Howard, or like you had Drew Brees or Ben Roethlisberger, you're looking for a quarterback, like things like that. So I'm going to kind of talk about that. And I talked about this a little bit in the last video, but if you start out 0-2, don't get too concerned. It's still a long season ahead, but this is where you want to start making your moves in order to help you with the rest of the season, and that's where I hopefully want to steer you in the right direction here. So before we get into fantasy football, it's September 17th, which it's really not anything, but I'm going to talk about Star Wars for a sec. So comment below what your favorite Star Wars movie is and your least favorite Star Wars movies. It just is an aside. So for me personally, my favorite one is Empire Strikes Back, because that's just the classic Luke figures out that his dad is Darth Vader kind of thing. But my least favorite movie, and a lot of people hate The Phantom Menace because they hate Jar Jar Binks, but I don't think that movie is terrible. The movie that I think is terrible is whatever one came out 2 or 3 years ago, The Last Jedi or some nonsense. That movie was just absolutely insane. Just such stupid plot line and character development, and I don't know. I could go on a rant about that for a whole video, but I'm not going to do that here because I'm talking about fantasy football. But anyway, so yeah, comment below what your favorite and least favorite movies are from Star Wars. So let's talk about the Monday night game. So my takeaways for both of those teams. So for Cleveland, again, I wouldn't be concerned with those players. They looked a lot better this game. I think part of it is that the Titans D is underrated. I'm going to be talking about them in a minute as well. But my big takeaway with Cleveland is if you didn't watch the game and you didn't see what happened with David Njoku, he had a concussion at the beginning of the half, or excuse me, in the first quarter. He didn't catch a pass that game, so he gave you 0 points, just like OJ Howard. So a lot of people are David Njoku gave me a 0. Well, I wouldn't treat him like you're gonna treat OJ Howard. I wouldn't start him next week, especially with the injury concerns. But leave him on your bench. Don't get rid of him yet, because those are both very talented tight ends that have a lot of opportunity to really step up as the season goes along because of their athletic ability. Just not really in the best of situations right now. Especially, Njoku is even more worth keeping than OJ Howard is, because his was just simply a result of an injury that hopefully he can get back from it soon, but he had a touchdown week 1, so don't forget about that and just drop David Njoku. And then for the Jets, their season is done. I had my doubts with Trevor Siemian as their quarterback, and he looked just as awful as I imagined he'd be. And then then he got injured. I don't even know if he's going to play again this season after watching that. And then they brought in this guy named, I think his name is Luke Falk is his first name, and then the offense was just even more inept. So you have to take Robbie Anderson, out of the picture now. I don't know, a lot of people are talking about Chris Herndon potentially when he gets back, but what's that going to look like with Falk at quarterback? The only one that I like is Le'Veon Bell, because I think that literally they're just going to be dumping it off to him all the time. And if you're in a PPR league, it just basically becomes a Saquon Barkley effect where the team just needs to rely on him to carry the load. So yeah, that's my takeaways from that. So now let's get into the waiver wires, and these are the guys that I like the most and the guys that I don't like. So the tricks or the treats for the waivers heading into week 3. So my number one guy that I like, and I go off of best value available, not necessarily positional need, because again, you can trade players if you're getting the best value for something you need that is probably going to help you more than somebody you grab off waivers. So my number one guy that I like to pick up is Deebo Samuel. And the reason I say this is that he hasn't had any games that have necessarily exploded yet, but the trend in this offense is that he is becoming their number one receiver. And now is the time to pick him up, especially at a time before he really explodes, because his numbers have been trending upward the last couple games. Like he was among the leaders in targets in week 1 for the 49ers. And then this week he was the leader in targets. So he had 5 receptions, 87 yards, and a touchdown. Led the team in targets. So I think this guy is stepping up as the number one receiver. And I think that there's not really anybody else that's in his way except maybe Marquise Goodwin, but he dropped a bomb in the first game. So I think Deebo Samuel, this is going to be a great opportunity for him moving forward, and going to really potentially be a lot of value for you as the season goes along. Another one that I like, and I already talked about him last week, is Terry McLaurin. And this was kind of like my test for is this guy for real or not? And he showed me in this week that he was, because he got another 5 catches, 62 yards, and a touchdown. So this guy has clearly got a rapport with Case Keenum. Again, Washington doesn't have anybody that really stands out as their number one receiver, so this is a great opportunity for him. But the real challenge with McLaurin, and this is why I don't make him my number one ad, is because they're playing the Bears next week. So Terry McLaurin, as I talked about in the last video, this week is huge in terms of deciding what you want to do with him. At least get him on your roster if he's there, but then figure out if somebody is willing to take him in a trade, because his value might go down significantly against the Bears. Because they have shut down receivers so far this season, except for Emmanuel Sanders. So if Terry McLaurin has a good game against the Bears, I like him as a guy that you got off waiver wires to be a huge asset for you the rest of the season. But if you want to get value for him, now is the time to do it, I think, especially in case he does have a dud game against the Bears. So see if he's available out there in trades. I'll probably talk about him tomorrow as well in the trade video. My number 3 pickup is Jaylen Samuels, the 3 that I really like. The top 6 that I really like. So Jaylen Samuels I like. He didn't have a very good game this week. He only had 18 rush yards, 13 receiving yards. But if anything is wrong with James Conner, they're saying he's healthy, but if he can't go in this game, immediate RB1 potential. And they're playing the 49ers, which they're a good defense so far, but you have to take the volume opportunity there. And they're going to be relying on those running backs more, especially with Big Ben being out for the season. So at least have him as a stash, because you're not going to have a lot of opportunities to get top tier running back potential guys at this point in the season. But this is a guy that you could stash and potentially give you insurance, especially if you own James Conner. That becomes possibly the number 1 priority for you. My number 4 treat is Will Dissly. And Will Dissly, I talked about, he's kind of an underrated guy that you want to keep an eye out, because he did pretty well when he was healthy last year. But this was his best game by far of his career. He had 5 catches, 50 yards, 2 touchdowns. And he had another catch, if you didn't watch the game, a 43-yard reception that was called back for a penalty. So that would have inflated his numbers even more. Especially if you own somebody like O.J. Howard, David Njoku, pick up Will Dissly. Don't drop OJ or Njoku, but I would recommend starting Dissly next week, because 49ers they gave up some yardage to Tyler Eifert last week. So this is this is a guy that I think you take a flyer on for week 3 if you own either of those 2. Could give you a lot of points, and then if he does really well, then maybe you want to hold him as your long-term tight end instead of OJ Howard or something like that. My number 5 guy, this is going to the quarterback position now, if you're for those Breeze or Roethlisberger owners, is Josh Allen. So Josh Allen's still available in a lot of leagues. I don't know how he is, but if he's there, you need to grab him, because 250 yards and a touchdown through the air, 21 yards on the ground and a touchdown, and potentially going to get more rushing touchdowns depending on how Devin Singletary looks going forward. So this, and next week they're playing the Cincinnati Bengals, who just got lit up by the 49ers. So take advantage of this guy if he's on waivers. This is your potential buy low fill-in for those Roethlisbergers and Breeze owners out there.
And then my number 6 ad is the Titans D, which is still like less than 50% owns in league, but they're the number 2 defense right now. And they've shut down like decent offenses, Cleveland and Indianapolis. And next week they get the Jacksonville Jaguars, who is using a 6th-round quarterback, rookie quarterback as their starting quarterback right now. So much value there. You have to take advantage of that. And I think that this is going to be a huge pickup if they're there. I would really recommend getting the Titans D, even for long-term value the rest of the season. So that's why I include them in these treats. All right, and then 6 tricks, guys that I don't like. I mean, I like these guys potentially to pick up, but not as your top waiver ad, and that's why I'm calling them tricks. And number 1, I'm going to start with Demarcus Robinson. So, yes, he exploded in this game. Yes, the Kansas City offense is dangerous in general. And yes, they don't have Tyreek Hill. But the sample size of what this guy has done throughout his career, this is way out of proportion to what he usually puts up. Like, just look at his... So this week he had, this past week he had 6 receptions, 172 yards, 2 touchdowns. That was off of 6 targets, so he caught all of his catches. That's not going to happen all the time. And then you look at his numbers from week 1. He had 1 catch for 0 yards and off of 2 targets. So he gave you a whopping 1 point if you're in a PPR league. So that's my biggest concern with him is if you take him and you think that he's gonna put up those numbers again in week 3, I would be very cautious about that. I mean, if anything, I like this guy only for the sole purpose of picking up and see if you can trick somebody into trading for him. Because I don't see this consistency sustaining itself. Like I said in my takeaways for the Chiefs in the last video, I see this being a consistent pattern with guys like Sammy Watkins, Robinson, McCole Hardman. They're just going to rotate off each other's explosive games. You can never really get any consistency out of any of those 3. So I'm taking those odds with Demarcus Robinson that he's not going to repeat this game. My number 2 trick, and I like to call him Al Gore because he's literally as old as Al Gore, is Frank Gore. Yes, Devin Singletary is hurt, and yes, now he's got the number 1 backfield job on his team. He got a touchdown last week. He even caught some passes through the air. But I still don't like Frank Gore moving forward. Just 1, because of the durability. 2, because I just feel I like him as a stream for week 3 because he's playing the Bengals, but I don't think he's a top ad to fix all your running back problems because this guy is the definition of modest gains. I think that part of the reason he got a touchdown is because he was playing the Giants. I mean, and he had a 20-yard rush among his 68 yards. You take that out, that's 18 rushes for 48 yards average. That's not very good. That's almost 2.5 yards right there. So I just think this is not gonna keep your value throughout the whole season. Just pick this guy up if you're in a pinch and you need a flex-worthy or RB2-worthy start for week 3 against the Bengals. My number 3 trick is Devin Smith, the Cowboys. So Cowboys, this guy led the team in yards. He got a touchdown, but I think that his numbers are again inflated because 3 catches off of 3 targets. The guys that were leading this team in targets were guys like Michael Gallup, who didn't have as good a game. Even Randal Cobb, who is again an underrated player that you want to try to pick up if he's out there. Devin Smith, I think, more just took advantage of the opportunity of a long touchdown against the Washington Redskins, who are just not a good defense this year. So Devin Smith, I think, is a very risky decision to bet on that continuing in multiple games. I think this is more of just a flash in the pan. But again, my opinion could change depending on how the offense develops over time. And then my number 4 and my number 5 tricks, both running backs for the 49ers, are Jeff Wilson Jr. and Raheem Mostert, who, this guy is, in the fantasy footballers, his nickname is Colonel Mostert, that Clue game, which I think is one of their best nicknames, but that's an aside. But anyway, both these guys had great games. Wilson had 2 touchdowns, but off of 39 yards, or 30, I think 34. Sorry. And then Raheem Mostert, 83 yards on the ground, but then he had 68 yards in the air and a touchdown. again, like, these guys are playing the Cincinnati Bengals. That's why those numbers were high. And they got ahead by so much, they just really, like, turned it into a 3-committee backfield. Like, it is, I mean, these are guys definitely worth owning if they're out there, but I wouldn't make them a must-grab start because, like, I think that Matt Breida is still clearly their number one back, and I think they're going to try to incorporate him in games that are closer for them. Like, next week they're playing the Eagles, which is a tough run defense. I think that I don't see that consistency of, like, all three running backs having excellent games again. So those guys, like, not bad owns to have, but I don't think that you can count on them to suddenly become starters. And then my other trick is, and I'm not saying to drop this guy if you already had him as your kicker, but Joey Slye of Carolina, because yes, he had a great game. He had 2 50-yard field goals and 2 more field goals for Carolina, but, you know, again, like a guy that, like, this need to see more of a sample size to really, like, commit to picking him up immediately. Like, let's say you have Vinatieri and you're looking for a kicker right away. Like, do not make your waiver priority add Joey Slye over, like, Deebo Samuel or Terry McLaurin, because it's good. I have a hard time seeing that kind of consistency at the kicker position going every single game, because if you just look at all the kicker numbers, like, throughout, like, the first 2 weeks of the season, it's really a crapshoot unless you're got those top 4, Tucker, Zerline, Butker, and Lutz. I mean, other than those 4, I think all of them are really drop-worthy from week to week. Maybe you can include Steven Gostkowski in there as well. So now let's go into the stream candidates, guys, that I like that you could pick up as a week 3 stream if you're looking for that, but I wouldn't necessarily put a top waiver priority ad on. Josh Allen, yes, I did make him a top priority ad at quarterback, but I still agree with that. But I'm saying, like, great matchup this week against Cincinnati. Like, could give you a lot of points if he's still out there. But long-term ad, week 3 ad, like, it's all just great short-term and long-term solution for you. Another one that I really like is Jimmy Garoppolo, who just had a really good game against the Bengals. He gets the Pittsburgh Steelers next week, which, like, their pass defense is looking pretty awful so far. Maybe that'll change with Minkah Fitzpatrick, but I don't know if he's going to go in week 3. So I like Jimmy Garoppolo against the Steelers. I like Matthew Stafford as well. Like, the Eagles, like, their run defense is good, but, like, their pass defense, man, is just, like, not, like, anything special at all. That's, like, literally the weak link on that team right now. So Matthew Stafford I like as a guy who could take advantage of that defense, especially throwing the ball. And then Jameis Winston, another good stream ad, but only really for week 3 as a stream option because he's playing the Giants. I wouldn't recommend Winston as a long-term quarterback solution. Running back. So I already talked about Al Gore, and I agree that, like, yes, like, not a good long-term solution, but this is a good short-term solution. Cincinnati Bengals, like, not a good defense in general. And I think that, like, this is a good opportunity for him to get a touchdown. Another one that I really like is Carlos Hyde of the Texans now. The Texans, I believe, are playing the... why do I not know this? All right. I'm sorry, but the Texans, anyway, like, I like Carlos Hyde in this matchup because, you know, he's already gaining a good hold of the backfield anyway. And I really like this guy moving forward to just potentially, like, pick up a lot of points for you as he gets a hold on the backfield. And really taking carries away from Duke Johnson. If he's still out there, I would recommend grabbing him if he's on waivers. Another guy that I like in a pinch is Rex Burkhead. He is a very risky play because he's a Patriots player, but they're playing the Jets. The Jets are just not a very good team. And like a solid, like, opportunity for you if you have, like, you need a short-term guy, especially in PPR. Like, Burkhead, at least for now, is keeping a pretty stable value for you. So, yeah. And then other guys that I like that you can pick up are Gus Edwards on the on the Ravens. I'm sorry, I'm kind of stuttering a little bit for some reason. like Gus Edwards on the Ravens is a good standard option because I think Baltimore, they're going to try to control the clock against Kansas City, use all their running backs, like really try to, keep Patrick Mahomes off the field. This could be an opportunity for Gus Edwards to step up if you're in a pinch in standard leagues. And then, but conversely, if you're in a PPR league, Chris Thompson, he's going to catch a lot of passes in the flat in this game against the Bears because just look at Philip Lindsay and Royce Freeman, who Freeman's not known as a pass-catching running back, together had 10 catches. So I think that all of those like pass catches that you're going to get in the backfield that Flacco had to throw, those two are just going to go to Chris Thompson in this game. He's probably going to have a game where he gets like 11 catches and like 30 yards or something, but like in PPR, like that's pretty good, but probably not in standard though. Wide receiver ads I really like. I'm sorry if the video cut off, by the way. I got like a call coming in, but I can do that in a bit. So sorry if it muted me out for a sec. But wide receivers that I like, Randal, Cobb going up against Miami. I think that is like great value for you there because he is still like so underrated. He's getting a ton of like value and looks on that team. I think that he will have his opportunity as the season goes by, and he's really a great floor player for you to have. So Carlos Hyde and the Texans, they're playing the Chargers. Sorry I kind of messed you guys up on that. But anyway. And then other receivers I like, Hunter Renfrow of Oakland. So if anything happens with Tyrell Williams, like Hunter Renfrow's opportunities are really stepping up on this team. I mentioned him as one of my takeaways from Oakland. Keep an eye on this guy. But like if Williams isn't playing, like they might go to Renfrow a lot in this game. And I think that if you're in a PPR league, that could be good sleeper value for you, especially long term. I see his role increasing as the season goes along. Wide receivers I also like. So Willie Snead, like this is a very risky play, but like if the Ravens are trying to get into a shootout with the Chiefs in this game and they're trying to utilize like the receiving options like Marquise Brown, Mark Andrews, they might look in Snead's direction as well because he's a guy that likes that they can stretch the field with. Maybe he can get a long touchdown for you, but this is more of a home run play than a guy that you want to add long term. So only like something if you're like behind your opponent and you're looking for something that maybe can give you a ton of points, I might consider Willie Snead. And then another guy, similar situation who's kind of looked like trash this season is Taylor Gabriel. And again, like the plus matchup against the Redskins, like this might be his chance to finally step up. But for the most part, like if this guy can't take advantage of this opportunity, like he's just like a drop-worthy candidate all the way. Same thing with Trey Burton, same thing like Washington just gave up like a touchdown to Jason Witten last week, which like Trey Burton is like easily a better talent than Jason Witten is at this point in his career. So I think that like this could be the opportunity for him to finally step up in that tight end role. Some people have probably dropped him by now. If he's healthy and able to go, I think this could be a good start for you in a pinch. Another one like that for Washington, same game, Vernon Davis. Again, Jordan Reed is dealing with injuries and not playing. No surprise there. Vernon Davis is at least giving you baseline value that's more productive than a guy like O.J. Howard, for example. So if Vernon Davis, like Chicago is like, it seems like their weak point in their defense is the tight end. Remember, they gave a touchdown to Jimmy Graham. Noah Fant, unproven player of the Broncos, had a decent game last week. So maybe Vernon Davis is a guy that I think could step up against the Bears this week. And then Jason Witten, I already talked about him. For the most part, I want you to try to sell him, but like if he's on your waivers, like he's playing the Dolphins this week, good plus matchup for you that you can take advantage of. And then another guy that I like as a tight end that you can pick up is Gerald Everett. Tyler Higbee's dealing with some injuries right now. Maybe he won't be 100%. They might go Everett's direction more as they're as they play the Browns this week. So I could kind of see that as a guy that you can pick up if you're really in a bind. Defensive stream options. So I already talked about this team, Tennessee. If they're out there, like consider them as a long-term ad. This is exactly why I don't prioritize like going Jacksonville defense first round. Well, okay, not first round, but like somewhere in the middle of the draft is because you could get great value from a team like Tennessee that's really kind of proving itself to be a good defense, especially against Jacksonville this week. Really like that matchup. San Francisco 49ers this week, they got a kind of a tough matchup against the Eagles, but the Eagles, like, what if their receivers are banged up? Like, they're giving up quite a bit of hits to Carson Wentz. Like, maybe the 49ers can actually, like, kind of surprise, especially if you're in a position where you're, okay, forget all that. I looked at the wrong like matchups. The 49ers are playing the Steelers. The Steelers are, I'm really messing up a lot in this video, I'm sorry. But the 49ers are playing the Steelers. The Steelers, without Ben Roethlisberger, like, especially 49ers have looked pretty good so far. I think that, like, this could be, like, a nightmare game for Mason Rudolph, potentially. I like this defense as a stream. Green Bay, I also like as well. They have a pretty good matchup, too. And then the Atlanta Falcons, like, this is a defense that's, like, you know, yeah, they got the Colts, which, like, not look like a competent offense, but, like, they're getting healthy again, look pretty good against the Eagles. Like, I think the Falcons are an underrated defense to keep an eye on as the season goes on. And then at the kicker position, so keep in mind, like, a lot of the kickers' like production is very difficult to read. I personally like to look at the games that I think will be like high scoring, but like maybe the team might struggle scoring touchdowns. And a game that I think could be like this, because I'm going off of the sample from last week when Tampa Bay played Carolina and they gave up that big game to Joey Slye, Aldrick Rosas of the Giants. So I think that like the Giants, they could get in scoring position a lot because they have Saquon. And then that's really the only guy on their team that's standing out right now. Like maybe they could get into like good field goal position, and Aldrick Rosas has a good leg. But they might struggle scoring touchdowns. Tampa Bay, you know, they kept Carolina out of the end zone, generally a better offense. So I see this as an opportunity for Aldrick Rosas to potentially have a good game if you're going off that same type of script that Joey Slye had in the last game. So, yeah. So anyway, that's my waiver wire ads that I like for this week. Let me know if you have any questions or concerns about any of this in the comments below, and I'll try to answer it and try to help you out with your team. So, cool. Well, thanks for watching. See you guys. Bye.